Gregor Mendel, giving peas a chance since 1856. Ha ha ha. So, the study of heredity started with the work of Gregor Mendel and his pea plant garden. Gregor Mendel is known as the father of genetics. He was born in 1822 into a German farming family in Austria. His intelligence garnered attention, and he was given the opportunity to further his education, which was a luxury at the time. He studied math and physics at the University of Vienna. He joined the Augustinian monastery, and because really there was nothing else to do, he took interest in heredity in plants, specifically pea plants, because their physical traits, also known as phenotypes, could be easily tracked. The pea plant experiments. After thinking about over 34 different traits, Mendel chose 7 different traits to track as he cross-fertilized the pea plants. Note that each trait has 2 different phenotypes. Also remember, a phenotype is a visible trait that can be tracked from generation to generation. So remember, it's a physical trait is a phenotype. So there were 7 different things that he decided to test. So here's an example of one of them. Height. So when he fertilized tall pea plants with other tall pea plants, he got all tall pea plants. When he crossed or fertilized small pea plants with other small pea plants, he got all small pea plants. Then, when he crossed tall pea plants and small pea plants, he got all tall pea plants, no small ones. But then he took those second generation tall pea plants and ended up with 1 out of 4 of them being small. So 1 out of the 4 offspring was small. Then he cross-fertilized purebred green seed pea plants and purebred yellow seed pea plants. That's the parent generation. And all the offspring of this first generation were yellow. So if you look at the picture, you see the green pea and the yellow pea. And look, all of the offspring are yellow. Then he took those yellow seeds and crossed those. The offspring of the second generation were mostly yellow, but he also found some green. So now he's starting to see a pattern here where the trait skips a generation. Remember, there were green pea seeds here. There's only yellow, and then the green ones appear again. Mendel thought that each trait, like seed color, was controlled by a gene or a molecular unit of heredity. He also hypothesized that each gene had 2 versions. We call those versions an allele. One allele comes from the male, from the father, and one allele came from the female, the mother. Together, the 2 alleles make up one gene. The gene representation or genotype thus determine the phenotype, the physical trait. That seems like a lot of big vocabulary, but let's just figure it out. So here's an example. A gene, which we'll say is a capital P, from the dad, leads to green seeds. A gene, capital P, symbolized by a capital P, from the mom leads to green seeds. Therefore, the genotype is 2 P's. Those are the 2 alleles. And the phenotype, the way it looks, are green seeds. So we represent the genes with the P's, letters, and then we look at the phenotype, we look at the actual seeds, and they're green. So since yellow seeds appear more often than green seeds, Mendel reasoned that the yellow allele is dominant over the recessive green allele, thus masking the green color in the first generation. The word dominant means stronger. Think about when you have a really good sports team, we say they're really dominant on the field, especially like in football or basketball. We say they dominate the field. It means they're stronger. So when we're talking about genetics, dominant means a gene that's always expressed, it always shows up, and it hides other genes. A recessive gene is a gene that's only expressed, that shows up when a dominant gene isn't present. So we have dominant and recessive. In genetics, there are three basic kinds of genes. Dominant, a gene that always expressed and hides others. Recessive, a gene that's only expressed when a dominant gene isn't present. And codominant, genes that work together to produce a third trait. Don't worry about knowing codominant. We're just going to stick with dominant and recessive. Mendel's work led him to the understanding that traits such as plant height are carried in pairs of information, not by single sets of information. The pairs are called alleles. And we know that carrying the information are chromosomes, and chromosomes are made of section called genes, and genes are made up of DNA. And those are all in your cells, in the nucleus of a cell. Don't worry about knowing that right now, just keep it in mind. So let's talk about dominant and recessive genes again. A gene that prevents the other from showing is called dominant. A gene that does not show, even though it's present, is recessive. And when we write that, we say the dominant gene has an uppercase letter, capital T in this instance, and the recessive gene gets the lowercase letter, the small letter t. So here with these little piglets, you've got the dominant color is this black color, and the recessive color is the pink. Another example is with your thumbs. If you hold your thumb up, a straight thumb is dominant to hitchhiker thumb. Hitchhiker thumb is when it bends back. Your thumb bends back. So a capital T would be the straight thumb. A lowercase t is the hitchhiker's thumb. So we always use the same letter for the same alleles. So no S for straight and H for hitchhikers. No, we just use the letter T. So a straight thumb could have a genotype of capital T, or capital T, lowercase t, because in this case, that capital T is dominant to the lowercase t. Now, the hitchhiker's thumb will have a genotype of lowercase t's to lowercase t's. In order for the recessive trait to show, you have to have two recessive alleles for it to show. I know this is a lot of vocabulary. Don't worry about it. We'll review and review and review. So, but just think about this. We have two lowercase letters. You get one of those genes, one of those alleles from your mom, one from your dad. And if you have two lowercase, then that recessive trait will show. Both genes of a pair are the same. If that's true, then we say that you're homozygous or purebred. Look at the black puppy. When he has two uppercase letters, that means he has two of the same kind of alleles, and he's homozygous or purebred. If there's two capital letters, that means they're homozygous dominant. If there's two lowercase letters, that means they're homozygous recessive. If there's one dominant and one recessive gene, then that is called a heterozygous genotype or hybrid. So if you look at the black puppy, you see that it's got a capital B and a lowercase b, but it's black. That's because that capital B is the dominant gene, and it overshadows this lowercase b, and so only the black shows up. In order for the puppy to be white, it has to have two lowercase letters, two recessive genes, 2 recessive alleles. So if it has a dominant and a recessive, it's called heterozygous. And just one more review of genotype and phenotype. A genotype is the combination of genes that an organism has. So when we represent that by writing, we give it letters, capital T, lowercase t, or 2 lowercase letters. Homozygous dominant, heterozygous, and homozygous recessive. That's the genotype. Then when we talk about its physical appearance, what it looks like based on these genes, that's its phenotype, that's its physical appearance. So the chromosomes with the genes code for the phenotype. Okay, there's been a lot of information here. Take your time, go back, rewind, and look at it. Listen, and make sure you use this slideshow to write down your vocabulary. Thanks for being patient. I know you're going to get this, and we will keep using this vocabulary over and over and over again so it gets stuck in your brain. Okay, that's all. Bye.